Tilde. Let's address the recent brouhaha involving YouTuber Sargon of Akkad, a Lush employee wearing a feminist t-shirt, what is doxing, and the holier-than-thou attitude some people have towards the so-called rationalist skeptic community as a result. This is something I've been meaning to talk about for a while now, the concept of you didn't mention X, therefore you're biased or pushing a narrative or something. You know what I mean. You see that sort of thing cropping up every so often, usually in comment sections but sometimes in videos, and as always this topic gets pushed to the back burner while I do other things, like real life. And it takes some manner of internet drama for me to finally get it out there, as it provides some degree of relevance and some fresh examples for me to use. So let's start off with the boring bit, the internet drama that I don't care about. YouTuber Sargon of Akkad went to a shop called Lush in Cardiff, saw one of its employees wearing a t-shirt with the phrase feminist written on it. He took a photo of the woman in her t-shirt and posted it on his Twitter along with the store name and the city name. What followed was somewhat inevitable. Someone in his ever-increasing list of followers found out who the person was, leaked their information, and the woman in question began receiving unsavory messages on the internets. Now, this was a stupid action on Sargon's part. There is no way around this. It was a stupid thing to do. Something he has admitted to, and published an apology for his actions. Another point to note before going any further, it is actually unknown whether or not the woman in question actually is a feminist or not, because it was work attire that bore the slogan, so she may have had no choice but to wear it, as is often the case with workplace clothing. This has raised several very interesting points, the first of which is, what exactly is doxing? An age-old question in the realm of photography and videography, where model release forms have been the standard for many years now when using things for professional reasons, basically money-making ventures. However, in other regards, taking photos in public is not a crime, nor is it forbidden, nor are you required to ask permission from people to take photos in a public place, owing to the fact that it would simply be impractical to do so in many circumstances. Take a photograph of an average city high street, and you could be required to ask anywhere from tens to tens of thousands of people for their individual consent to be photographed. As such, we don't legally enforce this because it's simply impractical and would prevent any photography from being produced ever outside of agencies that have put up signs saying filming taking place or something to that effect, and thus by entering the area you have implicitly given consent to be filmed. And that's a whole other legal and social issue regarding public areas, the right to privacy, the state filming you, and thus in essence forbidding you from certain areas if you do not give consent to being filmed, despite those areas being public, and that's something that's been going on for many years and probably will continue to do so for many years to come. Back on topic though, when it comes to photographing individuals, no consent is required if they are in public, although common social etiquette and politeness would suggest that if you plan on making someone the sole focus of your image, rather than just them as part of a wider scape with no individual person as the focus, you should probably ask that person for permission and maybe give a short explanation as to why you would like to photograph them before doing so. So the issue raises an interesting point of what exactly is doxing, a controversial point indeed. Is taking someone's photo doxing them? Is taking someone's photo and telling people the location of the photo doxing? Because if that one is the case, then everyone is doxing everyone all the time, owing to some devices storing geographical data in their photos' EXIF data, or internet-connected devices registering IP addresses or using GPS data to apply Google Map tags to images. Does this count as doxing? Is it doxing only when someone explicitly states the location or information about the person in the photo without their permission? Is doxing determined by the intent of the individual person sharing the information? For example, would it have been doxing if Sargon had taken a photo with a tweet saying something in support of feminism rather than against it? I can't help but think that if that had been the case, we wouldn't have seen so much outrage from the feminist YouTube brigade. But as you can see, there's numerous ways that you could define doxing, and probably hundreds of other criteria on top of the ones listed here, and no doubt everyone has a different threshold for which ones are and aren't acceptable, and this is why when it comes to law there is a spirit of the law interpretation of things to allow for things such as intent, where someone may technically do something wrong. In reality, they are a bit ignorant of something, or they're attempting to do something beneficial, but it has bad results, and that this is sometimes not punished because the intent was ultimately good. This concept is why we have Good Samaritan laws that protect people attempting to give medical assistance even if they make the situation worse, because the spirit or intent of the action was benevolent, not harmful. Which then leads on to the concept of the road to hell being paved with good intentions, and it can go round and round and round forever, so I'm not going to tackle that issue here. Now let me use that springboard of events to talk about what I actually want to talk about today. The concept of, you didn't mention X, therefore you're being biased or pushing a narrative or publishing fake news or some other means of attributing malice to people when ignorance is a far better explanation. The response to this aforementioned drama has of course been widespread and varied. Unsurprisingly, the social justice-orientated YouTubers, ever looking for a chance to bring down and destroy those they don't like, have leapt all over this, attributing malice to stupidity, and using the whole event to morally grandstand how much better than you they are, and specifically to passively-aggressively swipe at the general sphere of anti-feminist rationalist skeptics, or whatever meaningless virtue-signaling buzzword title they're using this week. So let me give a few examples. Christy Winters has been quick to tweet and then copy-paste the following onto every feminist video on the Sargon maybe a doxing topic. Let's see all the videos from anti-justice types condemning Carl and calling on people to shun him. Oh wait, they will most say nothing because they are hypocrites. Of course, there's no explanation as to why not talking about something makes you a hypocrite. Simply not knowing that something has happened cannot make you a hypocrite because you don't know about it, thus taking a position on it is impossible. And there's no explanation as to why, even if you did know about it but didn't say something, that would make you a hypocrite. Honestly, it's just an accusation which can be seen as plainly for what it is. An accusation of heresy, which is all the accusation of being a hypocrite means anymore on the internet. You didn't virtue signal something when I say you should have, therefore you're wrong. Because that makes sense. Of course, Christy isn't the only one who's gone down this line. Michael Rowlands, another feminist social justice YouTuber, has posted this comment on Kevin Logan's video on the topic saying, "And it's true, the silence from the free speech anti-doxing anti-Jews is deafening." In his own video, he had this to say as well.
This should be something that people call out, I mean, I'm doing it now, but, other voices within the skeptical community, they all get fucking up in arms and crazy about the fact that Sargon gets suspended from Twitter for a couple of days because he tweeted interracial gay porn at people. But are they crying about the fact that he just doxed someone? Not that I know of. It says a lot. It really says a lot. Anyway, I'm fucking rambling now. So, yeah, just awful. What is wrong with you?
And Kevin Logan, while not mentioning it in his video directly, did say this in his description box. It'll be interesting to see how the anti-fems respond, if they respond at all, to this latest fuckery. Unsurprisingly, the comment sections for all of these videos contain similar sentiments being expressed, but I'm sure you get the idea. The overarching sentiment is, you didn't talk about X, therefore motive. And this is a ridiculous position to take. The internet is a huge place, and many of us don't use social media, and thus simply don't know when things like this happen because we don't care about the personal drama and stupidity of others. I didn't mention Milo getting banned from Twitter, I didn't mention Sargon getting banned from Twitter, because I don't care. I am not involved with these people. The only reason that I'm mentioning this issue now is to talk about this particular topic. And I've mentioned this before in my Internet Best Friends video, that I am not a part of a community when it comes to the anti-fem, skeptic, rationalist, whatever other virtue-signaling buzzword grouping of the YouTubers. I do not have any contact with most of them. In fact, most of them I've never even heard of, and I quite like it that way, since, as I've said before in that video and my intellectual rigor versus ponage video, I find many of them to be relentlessly boring, devoid of factual content, and incapable of addressing actual arguments and data points, instead falling back on mockery and name-calling, and on the off chance they do actually use data to support their viewpoint, it's usually something that's just a copy-paste from another YouTuber who has actually done the legwork to dig up those sources and find the numbers needed to support or question a position. Combine that with the bandwagoning content creation cycle of full-time YouTubers, where many seem to be attempting to shit out content on a near daily basis so that they can stay relevant in the YouTube algorithm, resulting in lower quality products all around, and as a result, mostly chasing the same nugget of stupidity from the same sources, resulting in your subscription box being filled for over a week with the same response videos, which are now so bland and devoid of individual points and nuance that I might as well just pick which voice and still image I prefer and still get all of the same information, because many of them just seem to copy-paste their scripts from prefabricated arguments that are known to work and then sit back in their own hubris collecting the kudos and ad revenue that follows. But I digress. There are those of us who have nothing to do with the loosely defined community, something that I still find amusing, as there was such a push a long time ago for it to be a community and to brand it and try to quality control it and this and that, and then I point out we're not a community, and then over the next few months the we're not a community becomes the mainstay opinion of the community, because copy-paste argumentation that works. Anyway, there are those of us who have nothing to do with most of these people. We're not on social media because social media is cancer. I do not Facebook, I do not Twitter, I do not any other service than YouTube, where I post videos, and Minds.com, where I do not follow anyone, but merely use it as a dumping ground for thoughts that would maybe make interesting videos, but I just don't have the time to put them together because I don't do YouTube full-time. This leaves large gaps in my knowledge of what is happening to and with other content creators, and that's how I like it, because I don't care what they're doing, because they aren't me. I don't know them. I don't care about them. We are not associated or linked in any way at all, thus presuming that we are, and that just because someone doesn't talk about someone or something, that proves a position on the topic, is absurd in the extreme. The sort of people making this "the silence is deafening" kind of messages towards the Rationalist, Skeptic, or whatever of YouTube need to learn something. Just because you have a hate boner for someone, in this case Sargon of Akkad, and you relentlessly and obsessively follow him anywhere and everywhere you can, just to try and find that one time he messes something up so that you can morally grandstand and virtue signal and reaffirm your belief that despite the majority of times where nothing offensive or egregious has been said or done, when that one thing happens, you can point and magnify and reaffirm your belief that this is total proof that 100% of everything he says and does is wrong, and he is obviously by extension a racist, sexist, misogynist, transphobic, conservative, right-wing, alt-right neo-Nazi who is literally Hitler. I think that's all of the buzzwords that they use for heresy covered there. This comes from the flawed presumption that everyone is as obsessively following someone or something as you are. They are not. Someone not talking about something is not a sign of a position on that topic. Stop presuming knowledge and intent where there may very well be none. I find it hilarious I have to say this about a bunch of individuals whose default reaction to people misreading their statements or taking a logical extrapolation a little too far is to shout, "Principle of charity!" as your defense. You know, the idea of giving people the benefit of the doubt, that maybe, just maybe, the most insane thing you can think of isn't actually their position. Well, I guess if you didn't have double standards, you wouldn't have any standards at all. Which makes me wonder, given this reaction has come from people who have openly gone on record saying it's totally okay to punch people for holding views you disagree with politically, I do wonder, if Sargon had shouted, "She's a Nazi!" and then punched her, would this have been acceptable to these people? Because it seems these days that the mere accusation of such a thing is justification enough for violence. Just something to think about. In closing, this woman wearing a feminist shirt, probably made to by the company she was working for, is ultimately no different from someone walking around in a Make America Great Again hat. If people want to display their political or ideological leaning on their sleeve, as it were, that's totally fine. Exacting violence against them for doing so is not. Taking photographs of them to post on the internet, while not illegal, isn't a good idea. Especially if you are going to then divulge more personal information about them. It is this attitude that resulted in things like Donglegate. Someone did something I don't like, I'm going to snap a pic and stick it online. No, that's just stupid. Hindsight is 20/20 in almost all regards. This situation, I think it's fair to say, the aim was to highlight a company taking a socio-political stance on something, and that then the appropriate way to share this would have been a photo with the person's identity obscured completely and to not mention the location the photograph was taken at. The company name is fine, I think, because that's part of the communication. But the individual who has nothing to do with the political message and is ultimately just there to earn a living and the specific location they are at is extraneous to the message and should be undisclosed.